What are you doing here? You can't be here. Watch this Dalek video instead. I'll see you next time. Hello guys, I am back. We are finally continuing with the Dalek build from Hatchet Partworks. This week we're going to be looking at issue 15. Here we are in all its glory. As you can see, there's a plate in there with 4 small parts. That's not going to take us long at all. So, along with that, we are going to take a look at issue 16 with lots more tiny parts. This is a little bit more complicated, but with these two, we should be finishing off the Dalek dome finally, and then hopefully moving on to something else in the next few issues. So let's get into issue 15 and see where we can get to. So here we go, issue 15. Let's take a little gander inside. No artwork today, I'm afraid. A little bit of history with the Third Doctor, story about the Ogrons and the Stone Dalek, and then our instructions for the week. As you can see, not overly complicated, issue 15, and a quick glimpse of what comes next. So, very simple week. Let's get straight on with the instructions. There we go. There's the components for this week. We've got the base plate right here. We've got 4 little wheels and 4 little axles to go with it. As I said, not a complicated week. Shouldn't take us very long at all. Right, just before we begin, I'd like to apologise for the sound quality. I know it's terrible. I've had a mic issue, i.e. I forgot to charge it up, and now's the only time I can film. So I'll turn it up for you when I come to editing. Second of all, we've been given this delightful little tool set as part of the subscription, which holds all these goodies. Isn't that very nice indeed? And that of course goes alongside our previously obtained trusty Allen key and trusty screwdriver. So it looks like we're all set to go. Thanks guys at Hatchet Partworks for all the handy tools. Pop those to one side for now. But I'll tell you what I am going to need, and that is a pair of tweezers for this job. And we have just such a pair right here. So, very simply, we're going to take one of these delightful little objects. It's just a little wheel, a couple of ridges on either side. And take that wheel, flip this base over so that we've got these protrusions on the top here. What we're going to do is we're going to hold this wheel in place while we insert one of these tiny little axles through the correct hole. Let's see how easy this is going to be. Not very easy. Good start, Steve. Very fiddly, as I say. There's a little hole in the side, which hopefully I can get the axle through. We have contact, it seems. Little wiggle and in she goes, and that pushes right to the end. So there, as you can see, there's a little wheel held in place with the little axle And of course, my next job is to do the same on this one here. It's difficult to see the hole on the camera, but there you go. And of course the other two over on the other side here. So, let's get to it. I'll let you watch me suffer as I try and get these on with my big sausage fingers. One end does have a slight raised edge, so I am of course assuming that will go on the outside. Of course that will happen. Pull that back out again. I think maybe holding it from the top is the best bet. Pick up the axle again. Make sure the axle is in that first hole. And in we go. Excellent job. I'm definitely going to be going from the top again on this one. It seemed to work quite well. Just seems to be getting through that first hole a little bit tight, and then it goes through absolutely fine, which is some relief. Fiddly, simple but fiddly for sure this week. And that one straight in. Tweezers to one side, and there we go. Little runners ready to go. And that, believe it or not, is week 15. All done. So let's bring in issue 16 and see how much more complicated it's going to get. And as if by magic, here we go. This is issue 16. Looks a little bit more complicated. We've got CP screws, BP screws, AP screws, and we've got these little fittings here, all slightly misshapen, not quite circular, and this slightly heavier duty cog mechanism right here. And of course, the magazine this week. Some stories about the second Doctor. Again, no artwork sadly, but nice to see all sorts cracking off with the Doctors, and some instructions which, as you can see, do involve some other parts of the build. And by the looks of it, by the end we should have a working cog rotating head dome, which is very exciting. So I'm going to take you through it. I'm going to put that to one side. We've got all our components out. I've got the other parts at the ready. So let's dive in. So to start with, all we're going to need, we bring back the trusty tweezers, just in case. We're going to take one of these little round washers and one of these little plugs, and we're simply going to pop them on top of each other, like so. Do that for all of them. Didn't really need the tweezers for that one. And there we go, 3 parts ready to go. At which point we shall bring in the silver disc from issue 14. So here we go, here's the silver plate, silver disc. And what it's asked us to do is make sure that when these indentations are lined up like so, that the motor is on the left hand side of the disc itself. Then what we're going to do, we're going to flip that upside down nice and gently. We're going to take each one of these that we've just popped together, and if I show you there, you can see there is a slightly flat edge Here we go. Just on this side. So it's a D-shaped plug. It's just asked us to pop it into one of these little D-shaped holes right here. So let's pop those in. That way around. Make sure it's the right way around. Sausage fingers in action again, guys. Pop that on there like so. D facing in. Make sure that is the right way around. Have a look at that in a second. Doesn't feel quite right. The first one went in so easily. I had such high hopes, guys. That one's in. Just make sure I've got that the right way around. There we go. All popped in. And then we're going to take these little caps that came with issue 16. Again, slightly D-shaped. I'm going to pop each one of the caps just on the top of there. One up there. And one to the left. And then we're going to take the AP screws sent with the issue, and we're going to pop those in these little holes here. And in fact, I'm going to test drive the new screwdriver from the free set. So let's see, how difficult is this one going to be? Turning the screw. I'll tell you what, we're going to go with the little one. I think the big one may be slightly too big a screw head, or too small a screw head for the screwdriver. Like so. Much better with the little screwdriver from the previous freebie. Guess the time for bigger screws is not quite now. Trying to make sure I've got the thread lined up nicely. There we go. Definitely feel it pull in, and one to the left finally. Make sure they're nice and secure. Lovely job. That is those three parts in place like so. Excellent. Put the tools back out of the way. So next up, we're just going to pop this out of the way for a second. We're going to bring in the base plate from issue 15, as we saw earlier, and this giant cog ring from issue 16. We're going to line up these 6 holes here with these 6 holes on the top of the cog ring. So just pop that on so that they are nicely lined up. I can see all of those screws through there, screw holes rather. Just going to make sure it's as well fitted as possible. And then we're going to fix that in place with the CP screws. These are flange screws. Check the size of their head. Again, pretty small things these. that's what we're going to be attaching onto these holes next. Test out which screwdriver is going to work best. I think it's probably the smallest of the screwdrivers. Yes, the small screwdriver best. So let's start with the top. All went smoothly enough. Shall we try the bottom and see if we can get it flattened out a little? Excuse the fiddling. We found the screw hole. Tighten that up shortly. Once we've, it's definitely a tight fit, this one. Put one in over here. No, not like that, we won't. Very fiddly, this build, but satisfying nonetheless. I'm going to go over here, I don't care what you all say. Nicely done. Down here. There we go. We're taking some shape now. The final one down here. Tighten up with some of these. There we are, screwed in place nicely like so. And then what we're going to do, next up, we're going to bring in the silver disc again, like so. What we need to look out for on this disc is a little groove just in the side of the panel there, as you can see. What we need to do is make sure that that groove, wherever it was, just there, is on our right hand side. And then we're going to take the disc, this one, and we're going to go in sideways like so, so that those grooves line up nicely. Try and get it a bit closer for you. You can see the wheel just sits nicely in that groove, as it does on the other side. Lovely job. And then asks us to gently press the circular plate and just move those cogs around away from the grooves there. And what that does is that holds it nicely in place when you're moving it around, which is what comes next. So we will bring in, gently moving this one out of the way, the big girl herself. So there we go. As you can see, I've taped the wires onto the inside of the dome just so that they're not flapping about and getting in anyone's way. What we have to do, we're going to making sure that those cogs are just out of line with the grooves so everything stays in place. I'm going to flip that upside down. We're going to line up this line here with the front of the eye stalk. We're going to poke this This is the wire on the back here. We're going to poke that through the hole so that we've still got access to it. And we're just going to pop this nice and gently. If I can line it up correctly. There we go. Like so. And what we should find with any luck, there we go, is that the metal base plate has little holes like so, and they should all line up with a little screw hole on the other side, on the underside of the dome here, which they do very nicely indeed. We're going to fit that into place with 9 BP screws, which are right here, ready to go. I'm going to let you watch me do it. This could get very fiddly. I might edit it out if it takes me too long, or I decide to stab something that isn't the Dalek itself. Let's go try and put some of these BP screws in. I'm going to go with the little screwdriver again. Thankfully, it's magnetic. We're going straight into the front here. And that has gripped nicely. That should hold everything in place. That's a good start. Take our second one. Hold the head in place slightly, the dome rather than the head. We all know it's just a casing for a mutant squid. Turn that around slightly, and we're just going to work our way around, hoping that the magnetic screwdriver does its job. So far it is doing very nicely indeed. Out the screw. As I say, there should be 9 of these holes, more than enough screws. I do keep hold of the spares from each issue, just in case I should ever come across an issue with anything missing, of course. But these are all lining up very nicely indeed. Not too fiddly at all, actually. Very impressed. I tell you, this dome is really starting to get quite hefty now, which of course I fully expected it to, being a Dalek. It's not going to be light and portable. We're talking about a death machine. Not really, I'm not actually going to kill anyone with this. Although, I have considered asking to see who's up for a Dalek meetup once all of these beautiful beings are brought to life and completed in a year or 2 at this rate. There should definitely be a Dalek meetup. I'm not sure how the remote controls would cope with that, but there we go. All screwed into place nicely. And next we can move on to the testing stage. So, just before we finish, I'm going to bring in this handy little box to stand the head onto. I'm going to pull this wire out a little way. Then what we're going to do, we're going to bring in our battery pack, which is fully loaded, and hopefully in the off position. Excellent. What we're going to do, just going to connect these up, hopefully the right way around, like so. And we're going to very carefully spin this up, pull the cable out of the way like so, and with any luck, superb. Move that back here so they're out of the way of the camera there. Superb. Superbly evil. It does say in the instructions it only works the one direction with a testing box. However, come the grand finale, it will of course work in both directions. So I'm just going to pop this upside down again. Pop our handy box out of the way. Unclip the testing cable, pop that out of the way, making sure that's nice and safe for next time. And there we go, guys. Superb setup. We have a working, rotating Dalek dome ready for the next chapter, which only leaves us with one more thing to do, which is of course add them to the folder. In both. There we go. Cheers, guys.